All right, let's continue now with the developments in the Madlanga Commission. We speak to political analyst and researcher Dr. Dale McKinley. Dr. McKinley, very good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. So we don't have all the facts just yet, right? But to once again hear of allegations that there's a cartel that had penetrated the political sphere is really no small matter.
Yes, good evening, Bongiwe, and to your listeners and viewers. Yeah, no, look, there's a lot of fire here for sure, but I think we're still in early days. I wanted to, there's obviously a lot of the testimony that has gone, we've covered a lot of that and the allegations that have been made. But I think one of the things that is sort of missing at the moment is a very crucial aspect of this, which is the allegation that the minister overstepped his bounds and interfered politically in operational matters of SABC. This is at the heart of a lot of the allegations. And what has not yet been established in this case is whether or not that political killings task team was a ministerial task team and therefore was answerable to the executive or answerable to the police commissioner. I think that is a crucial piece of evidence and there's going to be led that will allow us to then get to the heart of what some of the allegations are.
And exactly, because when you truly, listen to what Major General Van Rooyen, for example, was doing last week to lay it all bare as to whose powers end where and who's supposed to be doing what. And when you then hear of an operational decision then being attributed to someone who should be exercising their role in policy making, strategic direction, it does raise some kind of governance issues, doesn't it?
Yes, look, there's clearly a case to answer. We haven't heard from the minister himself yet. We haven't heard from, for example, violence monitor Mary de Haas, who has made some serious allegations against the political task team and Mkhwanazi himself. So there was going to be some counter evidence. There's also a lot of evidence on some of the other legal aspects that the political killings task team took up in Eastern Cape and the Fort Hare case, which are quite controversial. So I think what we're starting to see a picture emerge, but so far we've only got one side of that picture, which is the allegations from the police themselves and from, in this case, Khumalo, Mkhwanazi, and Masemola. And now we're going to move into the other side, and that is when we'll be able to determine, okay, what is the evidence telling us and showing us?
And speaking about the one side, right, there is that ad hoc committee in Parliament that is also currently probing what we just heard as well. And then we're hearing that the commission in fact, the ad hoc committee next month will then be hearing from General Mkhwanazi, which then for some has raised the debate to say that do you really need these two probes at the same time to be hearing from the same witnesses in all likelihood, because ultimately these are the individuals that they're also going to have to call themselves. And I wonder, in your view, is it not a duplication of the work?
I think there is definitely the possibility that there's going to be some duplication, but there's an important difference. And the important difference is that the Madlanga Commission was established by the president. So it's an executive judicial commission of inquiry. The Parliamentary ad hoc committee is established by the National Assembly to make sure that the executive accounts. That is, if you look at its terms of reference, it specifically states that the reason why they're calling this is for the executive to account. So in some ways, there is going to be an overlap, but in many ways, I think that the Parliamentary Committee has a sort of similar mandate, but a more limited one, looking into the executive and making the executive accountable. And I think that's where it's possibly most of the testimony will be focused on.
And I want to, because my next question was going to be right on this accountability point, and let me stay with it, because when you look at the Zondo Commission's report, for example, it speaks very harshly of what Parliament should have done and how it was, ineffective. And one could put it as sleeping on the job, if one could say. Sure. So now, when you're looking at this particular, process by Parliament, it's going to be critical that they do actually follow through with accountability, because this is an institution that in and itself is finding itself under a sharp focus, particularly where public trust is concerned.
I think those are very, very good points, and you're absolutely correct. Parliament is under fire, and I think if you look at their terms of reference, they've basically covered most of the bases. They've talked about, protecting eyewitnesses and whistleblowers. They've talked about security measures, about how they can ensure that things are done professionally. They've employed outside legal counsel. So they're clearly listening. that they have not done their job and they want to do a better one. Let's see if they can do that, because the recommendations that they'll make, and by the way, they've given themselves a very tight time frame in terms of this, basically just a very short time frame. Let's see how much they can get and what recommendations for reforms, because that is the legislative competency of Parliament, is to say if there's systemic problems, then those need to be done by us, and those reforms need to be legislated.
And a final question then before I let you go. There is another story that is developing today, and this is the inquiry that has been set up by the President to look into the fitness to hold office of Advocate Andrew Chauke, the South Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions. Your reaction to that?
Look, I think it's where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you look, basically Chauke was suspended, 2 or 3 months ago. And it's been long overdue, but it's connected. I mean, I think the president is also probably feeling heat, and he's thinking that, listen, should have been done a long time ago. But also, in some ways, it could, put a little bit more focus on Chauke as opposed to the Madlanga Commission in reminding us of what came before the political tax schemes killings in the Zuma years and the roles that were played in covering things up. So in some cases, it could muddy the waters a bit, but it also could act as a reminder that this is what Makwanazi has said or alleged is not something that just happened in the last 2 or 3 years, but is a systemic issue that's been going on for a long, long time.
An interesting road ahead. Thank you so much, Dr. McKinley, for your time. And as you say, early days. So let's see then what becomes the other side of the story. I appreciate your time. There was political analyst and researcher, Dr. Dale McKinley.